Tuesday, Wednesday, I was going to do this, and that's exactly not how, it didn't work that way out in the village. But I ended up getting skin samples from the hunters, and they got me everything I needed in it. I didn't have to have it so scheduled. So that experience changed my life, and I ended up making a little production, just real simple production, about my experience, and then I felt like it was just basically a white woman's description of what went on in the village. So I went back and I recorded an old man, and it was the first time that I had headphones on and used a recorder. I didn't even know when the input was when I started, and that was the beginning of the beginning. And I went outside and recorded some auklets, because there were a million auklets flying by, and I got that on tape too. And then I really became hooked in sound recording and worked with cameramen as a sound person. But because of the limitation in Alaska, I just didn't feel like I had much. I wanted to do more. I wanted to do more sound recording, and I thought, well, what am I going to do? I'm going to do a library. Can I sell a library? And I started off with that, but then it turned into even a more richer thing. And the thing I did was, every time I get a sound, every time I go out to get a sound, it takes a lot of work of me coordinating with people. If you were here yesterday, you probably heard me say that I work a lot with biologists, and it takes a long time to get those situations set up where I can go with somebody as a sound person and be part of their projects. And so I started every single sound has a story. There's a story that.
Well, is that okay?
Sure.
They can't hear you that well.
One.
Can you adjust that? Turn me on. Okay, that's better. I think it's better if you stand on this one instead of that one.
I'm always doing this to people, so it's kind of fun. Excuse me. So every sound has a story. So and my background is in science, and I felt like I'd like to somehow share this experience, either of the recording or somehow about what the animal was doing. So I started writing it's kind of a funny story, I got all these stories. I was in a relationship and I was real depressed, and the counselor said to me, well, you can't simultaneously read out loud and be depressed at the same time. So I walked around the house with children's books, and I was reading children's books out loud, and this is how I got the idea to do radio work. Because I thought, I have a voice, and I think I can write, and I have all these sounds, and that's how this whole idea started. And I now produce national radio pieces, and talking to Chuck over the years about this, I think the most important thing in radio to think about if you want to do any kind of production in sound is to come up with a signature that's your own. And I believe that there's no reason to feel competition, because everybody's their own person and everybody has a style. So the style that I felt would be most effective in this science writing, if you've heard the radio, you might have heard of science programs like Earth and Sky and The Nature of Things. If you really listen closely, each of them have kind of a different angle. The Earth and Sky one is a couple that go back and forth and spit out facts, and it's very, it's pretty high-powered, as far as intellectually it's kind of stimulating. And then The Nature of Things is this old guy that kind of tells like a little bit about a story, and he's English, and it sounds very sophisticated. And I felt like what I wanted to do in science, in the writing I did, I didn't want to do it factual. I felt like I sat around and thought the most powerful things that happen to me is what I feel. But it was a conflict, because I'm supposed to write like a scientist. So I came up with this way of writing so that you're hearing me talk about seeing things, and then I throw in science. I throw in little ways. I write it. The biggest thing in radio is you have to decide who you're going to write for. Is it children? Is it high school kids? Is it your mother? Is it everybody? And I decided that I wanted to read to my mother and a truck driver and a scientist. So I'm kind of jogging down a pretty tight path there, because being able to write something that my mother could understand, but I don't insult a scientist, can sometimes be a little tricky. So I came up with this idea, and it took years to get someone on the national level to hear it. And I kept trying to improve it by letting people listen to it. Basically, I just had friends and people listen. What don't you understand about this? What doesn't work? And I just had a lot of people review it. And then I came up with this kind of a signature, and that's the biggest thing, I think, even in filmmaking, that if you have a signature, a way that you do your work, and then you do that consistently, and people get to know you for that, that you can keep learning by keeping, and then it's filled with passion too, because it's you doing it. It's what you believe in, and that seems to be the biggest driving force in my work is passion, total passion for the work, passion for the science. And so what I'd like to do is, I've got a 5-minute piece that I'd like you to hear, and this one ran on All Things Considered, I think last year. The thing about radio is, if you decide it's something you like to do, these kinds of productions, you have to find out what the format is of the programs that you'd like to do. And in radio, usually they're 5 minutes. There's usually a 19-minute mark, a 5-minute mark, and a 29-minute mark. And mostly what you'll produce, or what I've learned, is that you do either 5-minute or 30-minute ones. The 5-minute ones I do for All Things Considered. I actually just go out with an idea and I produce them myself, and a senior editor will air, I'm really lucky, he'll air anything I produce. But they don't pay much. That's the problem. The bigger ones, the long pieces, take a lot more work. To get a half-hour airtime nationally is a really hard thing to do. So it's something that has to be, usually a proposal has to be written. You have to get it by all these people. And then when you're writing it, you have to get it by all these editors. And a lot of people have their say in the writing. It can get really frustrating and a bit trying. But I think it's all worth it, because radio is an incredible avenue for reaching a huge audience. The other thing about writing radio is, unlike film, you can show the image, and we're so visually oriented that editors are working with images to get you to sort of feel comfortable. In radio, you have to create the image with the writing. So it's a real challenge, because I'm trying to bring you there with your imagination. And one of my favorite quotes by Einstein is that imagination is more important than knowledge. Because I give you the sound, and the sound is the thing that will bring the piece together for you. Because the sound, the transitions in the sound, your brain will allow you to sort of imagine, though you don't know exactly where I was and you don't know exactly what I recorded, your mind will fill in the gaps. And like video editing, sound editing is the same way. I'm trying to make those transitions smooth. So you go from one environment to another. And at the end of it, I'm supposedly have brought you to some place and spit you out the other end. Just like Daniel was saying, you go from here to here, and everything. It's the same thing with sound. I'm taking you from one place to another. So, could you stick on the number 1 tape?
Service is expected to send a
Here we go.
recommendation to the Secretary of the Interior to
wanna wait
open
for
almost 2 million acres in Alaska to oil development. The area is Southern Cook Inlet, a salmon-rich area south of Anchorage. The inlet attracts many tourists, drawn by the scenery and the chance to glimpse a bear. Tourist industry officials are concerned that oil exploration may hurt the salmon supplies that the bears depend upon. Commentator Kathy Turco went to the shores of Southern Cook Inlet to visit the bears.
To the northeast, I can see Augustine smoking. It's a perfectly shaped volcano still topped with snow. The scene is like something out of the Mesozoic. I'm sitting near Chinook Creek, where the mountains are terraced with grasses, tundra, and wildflowers. This is where grizzly bears live, one of which is staring at me just 30 feet away. I'm hunched over, my chest tight, afraid to move. My guide, Paul, tells me Alpha's 3.5 years old, a feisty young bear who only a few minutes ago got his butt bit trying to steal a fish from a big blonde named Solstice. Yesterday, she twice chased him across the stream and into the mud flats because he got too close to her fishing spot and her cub, Scrappy. Both times we watched her long fur pound in rhythm with her powerful legs. But right now I've got my eye on Alpha, because in about 3 leaps he could easily take a chunk out of me.
Alpha, get on. Get on. Alpha, hey, go on. Go on. Yeah, it's okay.
Alpha gives me one more stare, turns, and walks away, stiff-legged like a cowboy who's ridden too many miles. His knees seem attached at his shoulders. His hindquarters sway. As he leaves, I find myself thinking that bears belong here, the open space, a symbol of their attitude, and a place where they have nothing to fear. a place with no trees, low brush, and nowhere to hide. With lots of food around, they're tolerant of each other and of me, but like a young bear, I don't want to get in anybody's way. Most of their arguments are over salmon, using language like a growl or a silent stare. Contact, when it does happen, is usually brief and potent, and young bears soon learn that their age and strength define their privileges. As an outsider, it looks like a civilized society based on respect for the strong. Out here on the mudflats, I half expect to see a dinosaur show up and run off both me and the bears. Millions of years ago, dinosaurs did live here, and geologists say their old stomping grounds hold stores of oil, and lots of it. I'm sure I won't see a Dimetrodon, but it's oil development that might disrupt the salmon and the bears. With some of the strongest tidal currents and winds in the world, the inlet creates a perfect mixing for a prize salmon nursery. It also makes a risky place to stage offshore oil drilling. All development has a cost, but a new generation of engineers think design should closely mimic the nature of the place and not exploit one resource at the expense of another, in this case trading oil for bears. Through smarter design and the development of alternative energy, they hope to ensure that unlike other places, these fish won't have any new barriers to negotiate. As they run nature's 5-year obstacle course, return to the streams, spawn, and die. It's an ancient cycle that continues to support a complex food web that feeds the bears and me. In Chinook Creek, Solstice is standing flank first in the water, scrappy this time, impatient for a salmon. She walks a little ways upstream, crosses where it's shallow, and strolls along until she finds a slope gentle enough for him to climb. They walk into a big meadow bright with wildflowers and berries, where she rolls onto her back and wrestles Scrappy until he settles down to nurse. After a short nap, they munch their way back to her favorite fishing spot, a routine as predictable as a child's hunger. I've seen her make this journey many times, and as long as I stay out of the way, Solstice can go hers. This time, as I catch a stare that only a bear can make, my fear is gone, leading me to remember the words of Chief John, who said, "Some places should be left as they are for the sake of a place, so the bears can roam free for you and me to see."
Marine biologist Kathy Turco lives in Fairbanks, Alaska.
There's this big grant going right now, Education Alaska, where they're trying to get elders to explain how they learn science, how they've learned science to young kids. So I got involved in a project where I went out and recorded. I spent time at a spirit camp, and elders were teaching teachers things that they had known, and so I used sound effects to kind of weave that kind of piece together where I don't speak at all, and it's just other people talking, and I weave together with digital equipment. I can take sound bites and weave it together just like you would do a movie. And that's a lot of what I feel is my philosophy. I think I can say what I feel about it, and it's my perspective, but I don't feel comfortable telling what other people think. And so I was really happy to be involved in this project because I felt it was people saying what they feel, and I'm just using technology and sound to do that. So I'll let you hear a little bite of that. That's an entirely different approach, still about nature because it's just coming from native people, and still using natural sound effects, but a kind of a different way of doing that. So Joe, put in number 4. Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. No. I'm sorry. Number 3. Yeah, Old Minto. And this was we'll see how long you want to listen to this one. It's about 10 minutes. But you'll hear the way I weave the sounds together, and I weave the voices together. And that's what makes this like a film. That's what makes it, I hope, interesting. And brings you there and helps you imagine what these people look like or where they are. And
Light is here. It's the side here. Push it together. That's right. Sure, sure. Okay. We need to make it only about this.
Okay.
This is way too.
So
about
right here,
here,
I should
about
just make
here,
it as first.
About that.
Okay.
Then that's the way it used to be.
This grassy this way.
Okay.
This grassy this way. How you gonna do this?
Make it shorter right here. Because it's going to so long.
He's gonna make new one. He's,
I know.
Oh,
Yeah, but I mean,
Yeah.
this one is all right too.
Yeah, I'm gonna use that as a pattern.
Yeah.
I'm making this one. And this is my second one like this. These are two different types for holding twine.
We need one more elder to go along for the plant study. Who wants to do that? David Salmon is going, and they need one more.
Don't you never understand?
What you call those on birch, you know, those punk?
Yeah.
That kind of, I don't use it for medicine too long ago. But we have so much allergy, we don't use it anymore. We leave it on top of the stove and let it smoke, let it, that's for, so you catch cold and other stuff.
How many buds do you want, David? How many
That
more?
would be good.
That'd be good.
Not too big anyways. Up there is big.
Do you use buds from cottonwood also, or just birch? Do you use these kind of buds? Or alder? No, cottonwood.
No, that they got it already over there. The
strong
one.
Right.
That's the strongest one there
Yeah,
is.
that's the stronger one, huh?
You chew that, you know, it's really a sticky one too.
Mm-hmm.
But if you chew this one, the strongest there is, all this will be numb, you know. It's good for cough medicine, even just the way it is. You know, if you have bad cold, you can chew this. And then
Do you swallow it or
Yeah.
just chew it?
you can swallow it. But when you chew it, you know, all this thing is just numb, you know. Strong.
Strong.
Yeah.
That's more strong than birch, huh?
Yeah.
What about these? Soapberries.
This is what they call, I forgot, soft chuck, called bearberry.
Bearberries.
Soft chuck. Oh, that used to be a lot of big crowd, you know. 15 of them, they just run around like that, you know. Okay. They took up that fun. They didn't know how to play, then they would get too close to it, you know. You get it too close to it. You know, got to be 10 feet. Yeah. Got to be 10 feet out. They got to be 10 feet out. But he came to too close because he ran too fast, you know. Cheated. That's the way to do.
One on each side.
Two on one side.
Two on one side.
Two one side. Now don't run too much. Too fast. Don't come behind. Go right. Other side. Not behind. Not behind. No way. I play with it pretty good.
Animals, because you have to get in the situations I get in where I'm actually trying to record just what's going on, and I'm just a recording person. There's no camera person. People have to be relaxed enough around you to just be themselves. So you have to spend a lot of time hanging out, drinking tea, being there, waiting for people to just be themselves. And then I have to script out everything that they say, and then I have to put together a program that kind of combines. Because that was over 3 days. First they went out and the elders were showing somebody how to carve, and then they went out and they collected vegetation, and they were telling us things about what they did in medicine. And this was a game that they play, and they're using these tapes for Alaska Native teachers to take into the classroom to show kids, have kids hear what the elders are saying. So that's another angle, and then this one longer piece I have. I'm not sure how long I should let this go, but maybe I can do some questions before this, because this piece is the one I just produced. This one for a program called Soundford of NPR. It's the longest format production that you could get with an audience of 1 million people, and it was a half hour. And in this one, I used, in the 5-minute piece, what I would do is I'd get natural sounds, the best natural sounds I could get, and I'd weave them together, and then I'd write something, and I'd weave the sounds around the writing, around the story. In this one, I actually went out with scientists, and instead of just going out with them and getting the information and then me writing about it, I recorded them and things they had to say, and then I have to write a script including what they call actuals. And the tricky part of doing an edit with actuals is the actuals have their own ambience to them. So you'll hear in this one, there's people that are working on a seabird colony, and so you've got birds flying around, and what I have to do when I lay out the storyline of this, I've got this actual stuck here in my voice and another one stuck here, just like what Daniel said, when you piece things together. But what I have to do is I have to get the sound transitions to work so that I'm taking you from one environment to another, and sometimes I have to lay another track of birds in the back so it sounds like we're going to that area. So it's a little trickier once you get actuals in, because I don't have the control that I want. And you just have to keep layering sounds. Like I have a computer editing system like Daniel, so I have all these tracks, and I can layer sounds and fit in the actuals and then do my voice. So it's quite a deal to do a production, but I like doing every aspect of it, and I have total control, and I'm the only one to blame if the project doesn't get done. But does anybody have any questions, and we can hear this next one? Sure.
I was curious. I was just curious, how do you choose the sound? Because sometimes there's so many sounds that are unfamiliar to the audiences that you're targeting them at, and if they hear something that they're not looking at the machine and the machine is
Yeah, if the writing is sharp, and you have to play a little bit with curiosity. You want people to not quite know what it is sometimes at the beginning, and like in filmmaking, you sort of present it, and then there's got to be a payoff. You've got to tell them somehow at some point what that is, especially if it's an unusual sound. In my writing, I'm trying to specifically explain something. This is where bears live. There's a mother and a cub. We're in a mud flat. I kind of tell you, so your brain will fill in the gap and it'll hear the sound. It won't be so foreign. And that's a lot of times I have trouble sometimes with the writing. Sometimes I have trouble writing the science in a subject that I know really well, because I forget that you don't know that a sand lance is a little tiny fish like that. I've seen millions of them. I think, if I say the word sand lance, you might think it's as big as a whale. And so I stumble sometimes in my writing because I don't realize that you might not understand what I understand. And so the writing really, you have to somehow explain it. Either you say, this is a recording of, and you play it, or you play a little bit of it, just enough where people aren't getting too uncomfortable, and then you tell them what it is, and then they can kind of fill in the gaps. But sound has that kind of, that's a problem, just because they can't see it, they can only hear it, and your imagination will run wild, right? And sometimes you want it to. That's what's exciting, is I can put on I have another piece about walruses, and they make this sound that sounds like an angel floating around, and you're like, how could a walrus that big, that ugly, make that kind of sound? And you get most people's jaws drops, and that's probably why I do the writing and do the work, because I'm so lucky to get out there and so fascinated by what I hear, that once I get it, I just cannot handle having it just sitting in my house and nobody hearing it. So I'm very motivated once I get it, which takes a long time to get it out there. I want people to hear it. I want kids to hear it. So it's really exciting. Like I said, it's totally driven by passion. I love the recording, and I want to share it with people. Yeah. Well, in the field, I write down. I don't have a. Janet has a time-coded DAT machine, which when she turns it on, it'll show up the time code that she's at next. I don't have a time-coded machine, so it starts at 0 every time I start again. So all I do is, in the field, I'll write down the date and where I'm at, and when I turned it on, and then I generally write down it was 5 minutes, and then I write down again what I recorded. When I go home, I have to log that very specifically, because I'll miss. I'm too worried about what I'm doing, and I can't move, and I can't barely can breathe when I'm doing recordings. My equipment's so sensitive that it picks up my stomach growling, and I'm just sitting there, quiet, and not breathing as much as I can. So I generally make the notes out in the field, what's there, and then I try to get home and log, but I'm so behind in logging that often what I'll go for is, and I have a memory of what I've done too. If I'm prompted to remember the sound, I can pretty much pull it out. So if you have a time code, it's easier, because then you can be a little bit more specific. But it's pretty labor intensive. I mean, once you get the sound, there's a lot of work keeping track of what you've got. And I find logging and being real good about that is your only way to keep track of it. Because I've got over 200 hours of tape from all over the place, and if I don't have a handle on what I've got, which I don't sometimes, it gets way out of control. And actually putting pieces together, you have to be organized, especially the kind of production I just did, where I've got 5 actuals, and they're coming off of 7 different tapes. And the way I put a production together that I've found is the easiest way, especially when I'm working with computer editing system, that is if I can make a master. You do a lot of work on paper before you ever go near the tape as to how you're going to put this thing together. And then I'll go and I'll make a master tape of this sound after this sound after. I'll make a master tape of all the natural sounds. Then I'll make a master tape of all the actual sounds. And then I got to go into the studio and voice my script, and I get that down on another tape. And then I've got that all indexed. My machine, if you start and stop it on my studio machine, it indexes them automatically. So by hitting one button, and if I'm real organized, I can keep track of where everything is. But it can get really out of control if you're not. And I'm a scientist by training, so for some reason I love doing that kind of stuff. So I love keeping track of things and keeping organized. And so and maybe I always used to think of people that were really brilliant. Their desk used to be a huge mess, and I go, God, I must be really stupid, because I have to do everything organized, so I can't keep track of anything. And in the sound work, it works out just fine for me.